Are you all set? Okay. All right. So we are going to call to order the Narragansett Town Council public hearing with the school committee. Do I have a motion to open and hold a public hearing for the Narragansett School Department as submitted for fiscal year 2025?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0. So at this time, I would like to call Dr. Cummings up to present the school budget. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good to see everybody this evening, and I am pleased to be here on behalf of the Narragansett School Committee to present the school system budget, which the school committee passed for approval and moving on to the town council last week. Let me see if I can get this to work. Great. So first of all, as you all know, we spend a lot of time working on this budget. We're very focused on making sure that we are both developing a great school system and being fiscally responsible to the town. So I just want to mention a couple of people that are really key to this, primarily Karen Hagan, our finance director, who really is the engine behind the level of detail and the deep thinking that goes into the budget. Obviously, our principals do a great deal of work making sure that everything is set, and I also want to thank Jim and Christine for their partnership as we kind of talk through where the town is, where the school is, and try to make something that works for the whole community. So first of all, as you all know, this is a process that really begins in November. And for us, we go through a lot of vetting processes as we go through. So, you know, as you all have seen, we met with you in December to talk about the large picture financial forecast. We do a capital reserve meeting to really go over the school capital plan so we know what's happening with our facilities. And then we go through a series of workshops, get input from the community, get input from different stakeholders on our budget. The school committee voted to move the budget forward to the town council on our March 20 meeting. We're obviously here on our budget meeting with you all, and then it goes through your town appropriation process. And so, you know, one of the things that I want to call attention to is really who our students are. And we're going to be talking about a lot of numbers tonight, but you know, right now we have over 1,000 students in our Narragansett schools. We do have 8 students who are out of district placements. That means that their specific needs move beyond what's available in a public school and they need a specialized setting. We have 18 that attend career and tech schools. And so the landscape in Rhode Island is really changing quite a bit. There's more fluidity than there ever used to be for high school students. So we take in over 73 students, but we also have a few students that choose to go to other districts, and so we are responsible for tuition for those students. We have 23 students homeschooled, which, you know, surprisingly, it's pretty high. It's lower. It's a lower average than some other districts in the state. I think there was a lot of feeling that a lot of students that started homeschooling would be coming back, and we did get a lot that came back, but not all. And so, you know, a lot of students that started homeschooling during the pandemic just kind of stayed with that process. And as you all know, Jamestown students have the option of either going to North Kingstown High School or Narragansett High School. So we have 39 Jamestown students at Narragansett High School. So we are approximately 18% free and reduced lunch, so that's a measure of poverty, all right? And so that is, I think, higher than a lot of people believe that, you know, is in this area. But if you kind of think about Washington County, you know, there is a higher rate of poverty than some people imagine. And so that's about 18% of our students. We're about 13% students of color. And so our schools are becoming increasingly diverse, and you know the rich perspectives that brings to our district. We're less than 1% of English language learners, although that number, even though it's still less than 1%, is slowly increasing. So we have more students than we have ever had before who are native speakers of other languages. We're around 16% of students with IEPs. And that's actually down for us over the last several years. We're really seeing the effect of having a high-quality preschool. And so because we have a really effective early intervention program, high-quality preschool, the number of students needing special education services in the younger grades is slowly going down because we're catching kids earlier and giving them more quality level preschool as we go forward. And about 4% of our students require 504 plans. And so how are we staffed? And so again, just to go over this, we're at 142 and a half teachers, so one part-time position. And that, again, has gradually gone down over time. As our population has decreased, the number of teachers that we have has gradually decreased. One of the things that we are really cognizant of is making sure that we're not overstaffing or understaffing. We want to make sure that we're kind of hitting that sweet spot where we have a very solid student-to-teacher ratio, have the interventionists, have the expertise that we need to be in place, but at the same time are being responsible and not having too many staff that might not match the number of students that we have. We're at around 27 teacher assistants, and again, our teaching assistants are typically with students who have special needs or severe special needs, and so they require that one-to-one attention. We are still one of the only districts who have our own transportation system, so we own our own buses. So the transportation employees, the bus drivers, bus monitors, those are all direct employees of the district rather than contracting that out. I will say that continues to be an operational kind of gift to us. There are so many districts that can't get buses for field trips, that have struggles filling positions, and we don't have that problem. We are at around 11 clerical and business operations, roughly 8 at central office and special education, 4 principals and assistant principals, 1.25 athletics, and then some technology support for a total of 245 people. And, again, the majority of the cost of an education system is in the people. And so that's really, our teachers. We have highly skilled teachers. We really value the work that they do. And so we really value making sure that they have a good place to work and that we're supporting them in their work. So we've had a lot of great stuff happening in our schools. We've been able to expand our AP and college level courses. We have several partnerships with the University of Rhode Island, and we have added several AP courses every year. And so we have more and more students taking those courses. We were actually a commended school by the College Board this past year for our AP program. We have great enrollment in our career and technical education programs. So that's our agri-science program, plumbing, digital media, teacher education. Those are in computer science, and those are just amazing programs. And so we are developing a partnership with Electric Boat for our students coming out of our plumbing program who have a deep interest in that manufacturing and in that welding. We continue to work with URI on our computer science. We're one of the leaders in the state in that program. And you all know and are really familiar with our agri-science program and the great things that the FFA does. The plant sale is coming up in the spring, by the way. And so again, I mentioned our full-day preschool previously. That again continues to be an incredible program. We have parents calling us like years ahead of time, wanting to get their students enrolled in that. And so we have been fortunate to be able to take all students over the last couple of years. And so that is a very important high-quality program. We have switched our schedule. So one of the things that is happening in education in Rhode Island is that there has been an update of the requirements to graduate from high school. And so the Department of Education has new secondary regulations where students are now required to take more and different courses than they were previously. So in the past, students did not necessarily need to take, for example, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. They didn't have to pass all those. Although in Narragansett, the vast majority of our students did. That's now a requirement. 2 years of a language are now a requirement. Financial literacy is now a requirement. So computer science is now a requirement. And so there's lots of things that they've put into those regulations that required us to adjust our approach and make sure students have the opportunity to take all those classes. So we've had some switches in our use of time. I hope all of you have had the time to go to a music or concert or one of our drama programs. They're outstanding, all the way from elementary through high school. Those are really thriving. We have excellent faculty members in there. And as you all know, and I think I've heard in many ways, our athletics program continues to thrive, and we're really proud of both our middle school and high school athletes as they work on that. One thing that we're particularly proud of is that our math achievement continues to grow. And so that has been a weakness in not only in our area, but in the state of Rhode Island. We've invested a lot of energy in mathematics. And so our scores are going up in math, and we're very pleased with that. We've hired some great teachers in that area, and that has been an area of focus for the school committee, and we're seeing those results. So that investment in expertise and in professional learning has really paid off. And then finally, as you all know, and I hope if you haven't seen it yet, you've gotten over there, we've finished the auditorium renovation, and so that's a direct result of the investment in the capital budget. And that, again, has been just a wonderful outcome. It is night and day. It's really an incredible performance space. So what does the future hold for us? Dan, could you forward it one? Thank you. We're going to continue on the pathway that we've been going. We have a really solid strategic plan from the school committee. We are going to further implement the secondary regulations that I mentioned before. Those are a key piece. Continued intervention and support. I would love to report back to you and say all the effects of the pandemic are over and everyone is fine now. Unfortunately, we do still have students who are behind, just from the school that they missed. Even though we were one of the first to open, we still have students, especially students who missed some of that early reading work when they were home, that we need to continue to work with. So that's part of our focus. CT program development is huge. As I mentioned before, our partnership with Electric Boat, the growth of digital media, those are huge pieces. Curriculum work. And the other thing that I really want to mention is, having a safe and secure and responsive school environment. We have partnered with our Narragansett Police Department, who are simply wonderful for us to work with. We have SROs in each of our buildings. That's really a partnership that we do with the town. That's a critical piece of it. One of the things that we do is we get feedback from students. And, when we looked for feedback for students around the SRO program, they were, to a student, incredibly positive about it. So they felt really great about getting to know the SRO. Several of them actually said, I used to feel a little nervous around a police officer, and now I really realize that they're here to keep us safe and to help us with problems. And so that's really a credit to that whole program. So where are we in enrollment? And that's something that we get asked a lot. Unfortunately, I wish I could bring better news with that, right? And so right now, we continue to see our early grades enrollment, at a level that we wish was bigger. So we are anticipating we'll have around 50 students in kindergarten next year, and we will graduate a class of about 120 Narragansett students. And so that's a pretty significant drop. We continue to make staffing adjustments because of that. And why would that be? Well, quite honestly, and I think, the council knows this far better than I do, I think there are a lot of reasons why houses are really hard to get in Narragansett right now. And so unfortunately, a lot of young families just can't afford to start a home in Narragansett. And so, we're seeing our population drop accordingly. I can't tell you how many calls I get from young families that say, oh, can we enroll our student in Narragansett from another town? Can we send them over for tuition, that type of thing? And it is unfortunate that we don't typically do that. So, I feel pretty confident in saying that it's a high-quality school. It's not that parents aren't choosing to go to the school that live in town. It's just that housing is really out of reach for some families right now in Narragansett. So we are seeing the effect of that. So we do anticipate a drop of about 50 students for next year. So we will still be over 1,000 next year, we anticipate, but around, just over 1,000 for next year. So one of the things, though, that has helped our school is that we do get a number of incoming students at the high school level. And so Narragansett remains a very desirable high school for students in the area. And so I do just want to show you, we do anticipate next year we'll have around 34 students from Jamestown, and we will be, as you can see on this chart, getting students in a lot of different programs. So around 30 in agri-science, 24 in computer science, 8 in plumbing, 10 in education, 4 and maybe more in digital media. That's a pretty new program. And so those students come from all over. We do receive tuition for those students from, say, North Kingstown, South Kingstown, Chariho region. They all come to us. We get students from as far away as Warwick. And so it is a very desirable thing, and we do have programs that really lead students to get excellent credentials. What we also do have is students who go out, and so this for us is for often students going to charter schools, and so as a district and as a part of the district budget, we are responsible for that charter school tuition. And so, you can see that we have a number of students going to Compass, Kingston Hill, Green School, and we do have some students that go out to CTE programs that might be something that we don't offer, that they are looking for, that go to those other schools. All right, so we do have some students that go to Chariho, North Kingstown, and a program in South Kingstown. All right, those students are more limited. And again, that's typically something that we don't offer. So what really goes into our budget considerations? There are a few things. So first of all, it's the cost of contractual obligations. So, we have contractual obligations to our teachers, to our support staff, to transportation, to our administrators. So there are just some, basic roll forward numbers based on those contractual obligations that we have. The financing of long-term capital improvements. And so, as you all will remember, the town council has set a resolution that asks us to spend 3% of our total budget on capital improvements. So we have committed to that within this budget, and then to hold 2% of our budget for emergency reserve, which we have also committed to in this budget. One of the things that we've kind of adjusted for in this budget is the end of COVID federal funding, or ESSER funds. So we received about $2 million over the years of COVID to provide supports for students, which we did. And that really went into providing supports for students, to some technology to help students with the recovery. And those funds need to be finished being expended by the beginning of the school year in 2024. And so we will meet that obligation. We will continue to need resources for intervention, as I mentioned before, and really invest in the early childhood, career and technical education and AP programs. Those are the things that we're really hearing from students and families that they really support a great deal. We are also responsible, as I mentioned before, for charter school and CTE tuition obligations. And we continue to try to innovate. So we continue to try to have new programs. This year, you'll be pleased to know that we've included a couple of courses around seamanship this year. And so, that was, again, a high student interest. A couple of our new faculty members are really interested in teaching that. So boater safety, navigation, that type of thing will be included at the high school. So what are we doing with our capital improvement? Ooh, I think I went one too far. So this year we have a number of things that are happening with our capital improvement. So first of all, could you go back one, Dan? I think you went too far. Yes, thank you. So first of all, we are cutting over 4 teachers this year, in response to the number of students that we're losing. And so while those are kind of spread out amongst the schools, we will go down 4.25 teachers overall. And so again, I want to emphasize with the council and with the community, we are being responsive to some of the changes in our population by adjusting our staffing accordingly. Next one would be great, Dan. We also have, a number of proposed capital investments. And so again, these are important things for us. First of all, for the communication system for the district, that is really important, right? That is for emergency communication. Unfortunately, our phones are about 20-something years old, and many of them are still analog, so we do need to update them. And that is way pricier than we would like for it to be. Second of all, we are really getting hit with inflation like everyone else, particularly in our capital budget. And so while we need to do all these things, sometimes we spread them out over several years to gain the funding for that. The communication system is one of them. Again, we do have to keep up with our transportation system, so we do have to invest in new buses, so we do need to buy a new minibus. The lead time on that is well over a year, believe it or not, and this is a perfect sign of what we're dealing with inflation. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that minibus was about $80,000, right? And so right now it's up to 120, unfortunately, and that's just the reality that we're needing to deal with right now. Again, a couple of highlights is resurfacing the play area at the elementary school. Right now it's an old blacktop, right? We need to make that up to code and safer. ADA upgrades, ceiling tile, replacing parking lots. So there's a lot of kind of maintenance piece. What I will emphasize with this is it's lists like this that I think are really important, that we have not had to go out to bond or have a really major kind of reconstruction effort in the time that I've been here. Why? Because we've invested in our facilities over time. And so when we continue to invest in our facilities and make sure that they are safe, updated, well-maintained, that means that we don't have to go back to the taxpayer for a major ask to address deferred maintenance, right? So we keep up with our maintenance as we go forward. So overall, thank you. What does our overall budget look like? Well, our salaries are gonna be right around 2%, right? And that's contractual. Our benefits will be right around 2.3%. And again, that's kind of within a good realm. We work really closely with our insurance providers to make sure that we're getting a reasonable rate. Purchase, professional and technical services, that's going up a little bit. And that's sometimes, things that we can't take care of for specialized needs for students that we have to get from outside the district. Purchase property is, again, kind of property services that we need to do. Things like when we had the water main break at the high school, we couldn't repair that ourselves. So those are things that we have to bring in other people to help us with. Our supplies and materials, again, are pretty basic. As you go through, I won't have to read everything to you. I think the important point is, the overall budget is only going up 2%. Right? And so that's below the rate of inflation. I think that reflects some really careful budgeting on the part of our principals and our central office. And we're really trying to be cognizant of, again, the needs of the community and what's going on financially in Narragansett. So if you were to look at the overview of the budget, right, and really, I really appreciate this chart because you can really see 80% of our budget is salaries and benefits. And that's the way it should be, right? So education is a person-intensive endeavor. We want our resources going into finding the best possible teachers, the best possible administrators, the best possible teachers' aides that can be with the children in Narragansett. And so we are very fiscally conscious about where the money goes, right? And again, we are a very desirable district for people to teach in, and I will say we've been able to hire some really dynamite teachers over the past several years, and we can really see the effects of investing in high-quality staff. So how will the budget be funded? Well, right now, we anticipate the request to the town is a 2.74 request, going up 767,471. We do anticipate a reduction in our state aid of close to 3%. We are fully committing, all of our capital reserves, and we went over that with the Capital Reserve Committee with the Town Council a couple weeks ago. And so, again, per the resolution from the town, we are committing 3% to our capital, 2% for reserve, and the rest of it goes into our operating fund. So none of that is kind of being held back in any way. So that's the full, balance. We do anticipate getting $1.4 million in tuitions, and that helps kind of make sure that we're serving the needs of all of our students. We do get a little bit of money from Medicaid and just a little bit of money from other revenue like field rentals, that type of thing, right? So overall, that comes to a little over 2% for the full budget. So overall, again, as I just mentioned, right, so the proposed budget and ask from the town is $28,728,916. The 2024 budget is $27,961,445. So that is an increase of $767,471, 2.74%. And again, I think that reflects some cuts in state aid, some increases in kind of the cost of doing business, if you will, with inflation and those pieces. And overall, though, the increase is only 2% on the school budget. So one of the things I also like to point out is the school funding cost per capita in South County, just to put some of those things in perspective. So Narragansett is one of the lowest, and so the source for this is RIPAC, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council. So if you look at that, it's a little over $2,000 per resident. In 2021 was the closest I could get, but we're gonna, for the sake of argument, say that it's probably still proportional. And so, again, in comparison with other districts, right, Narragansett is relatively lower. And then if you were to go to the next slide, please. When you compare the municipal budgets across South County and some other towns throughout Rhode Island, the education portion, of the town budget is only 44% of the town budget. And so, when you look at comparable districts or area districts, South Kingstown's at 67%. A school system roughly our same size, Situate, is at about 60%. Westerly's at 56%. North Kingstown, 55%. We are well below, the area in terms of the level of resource that is being asked of the town to commit to the schools. And so, overall, what I would say is, investing in the schools is one of the great signs of a healthy community. When you have excellent schools, it does attract families to live in Narragansett. And I will tell you, even at the cost of housing, I can't tell you how many families we have that come in and enroll in our schools and say, we came for the schools. The high quality educational opportunities, again, that's good for business, right? So the better our schools are, the better it is for our businesses in town, right? So you can kind of have that flow of people to our local businesses. We have innovative programs and they draw students to our schools. So we can see that with the enrollment that we get from our schools. We have great staff and we do try to be very fiscally responsible in what we do, as shown by only a 2% increase, which is, again, below the rate of inflation. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments you all might have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any comments from the council? Councilor Kopech?
Correct.
I was looking at the general fund budget report by object, or it's sort of the summary. And I just wanted to understand
Excuse me, Counsel. You put the,
Sorry,
so
sorry.
they can have it on,
Sorry,
so
sorry.
they can get it on the
I got
on the
it,
camera. Thanks.
I got so excited. So what I was saying was that I did understand the salaries and employee benefits. There's not much we can, there's really no wiggle room there at all, which is understandable. Can you just, there's a line item that's called other items, and I don't really understand what that is.
Sure. Ask Karen to help me out with that one.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
The other items include just two items. One is the transfer of the capital,
Oh, okay.
the 1,000,001 to the capital fund, which is a separate fund from the general fund. And the other is a $30,000 transfer to the food service fund to cover any deficit in that fund for the year.
Okay. Because there's a reduction in that for this coming year, right? Is that what I understand?
Right. Last year, we funded the capital at 1.5 million
To cover the,
to help pay for the auditorium and some other
okay.
projects.
Okay,
Yes.
I just didn't understand. Munis still escapes me. Okay. So one other thing I just wanted to mention, so we had you have expenditures year to date. I'm assuming that that's through February. Is that right or is that wrong?
Yes.
It's through February, okay. So, and then, so I was looking at that, and I was looking at it, you know, I usually go in and I take a look at that on our budget too, and just kind of divide it by 8 and multiply it by 12 to get what I think is going to be what we're going to spend for the year. But I know that there are different things that you pay for at different times of year. So it would be something for you to maybe take a look at just one more time to see if there's anything that we can get from that or reduce from that, those groups of things, exclusive of salaries, employee benefits, and, you know, other items. So that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Ferrandi?
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Mr. Cummings, for your presentation, and thanks for the hard work for the school committee and all the good work that you guys have done. I have a few questions. What is the, I know the 3% is part of the capital improvement. That's, you know, it's part of the budget, and you're supposed to spend a certain amount. Same thing with the 2% of the over and above or extra, let's say.
The reserve.
The
versus
reserve,
fund,
right,
yep.
that's right, the right term. Does that, the 3%, do you usually spend that on all the capital improvements about that same amount? So it's is that kind of how that works? Or is that what you're doing this year?
Yes. So that's roughly $1 million, you know, a little bit more, right?
Right.
So 1.1, and so yes, that is all going to capital.
Okay, and then the 2% just, that's put in the budget and then taken out as you're going to use that as part of the budget or reduce the budget with that?
Right. So that is an emergency reserve. So that's in a fund balance kind of emergency reserve. So we don't touch that from year to year. And so hopefully we won't ever need to touch it, right? And so that's there. Let's say, for example, heaven forbid, there was a natural disaster and we needed to have an emergency repair of a generator, or a roof got ripped off, or something that was highly expensive and not budgeted for, right? That is there to cover the costs of those emergency services, emergency repairs, you know, until insurance kicked in and we were able to recoup those losses.
So is that part of a budget, or that's held separately? How much is in that budget about right now?
So that is held in the fund balance,
Okay.
right? And so that is not part of what you're seeing in the spending budget right here, right? In the operational budget. It's held as a separate part of the fund balance that is there for emergencies.
And how much is that approximately, do you know?
So that's about $750,000.
Okay, that's fine. And the reduction of the 4 teachers, what did that reduce the budget by? Just curious.
You know, our teachers are
Average.
you know, again, around high 90s for salary, and then, or mid 90s for salary, I'm sorry, and, benefits on top of that. And so, that's about a $500,000 cut.
Yeah, for each,
Not for each one,
the
but
total,
overall.
right, yeah, okay. All right, and let's see,
Maybe a little bit more than that, quite honestly.
right, I think I wrote it here. What is the average cost per pupil? If you divide the budget by the, I know people use that as a guide. I know you use it a different way in here
They
compared
do,
to towns,
and-
but
and
what is
so
that at? What is that at?
It's around 23,000 this year,
Okay.
right? Which is, again, there's several districts in South County that are close to us in that spending.
Right.
The other thing I would like to say with that, Steve, is, and one of the reasons I put up as kind of a percentage of the town budget, the cost per pupil can often be misleading in a smaller district. And so, for example, there are many things that we're required to have by RIDE. I'll use a school nurse, for example, right? We're required to have a school nurse, in our schools, right? We need to have one school nurse, whether there are 200 kids in that school or 500 kids in that school. You got to have one school nurse, right? The cost of that school nurse per pupil for the 200 is way higher than it is for the 500 kid school. Right? And so you'll notice that when you look at the per pupil list across the state, it is the smallest districts in the state that have the highest per pupil because of many of those requirements that we have from RIDE. That just drives up our per pupil cost. So one of the reasons I like to talk about percentage of the town budget, right, is that that's kind of more of an apples to apples kind of percent comparison across towns rather than a per pupil, which can be misleading because of the many requirements that we have around our staffing and the basic education plan from RIDE.
Right, I know you had mentioned extra, they've added some curriculum in there, so I'm assuming you'll have to get your teachers up to speed on classes or, maybe
All
take
of those
specialties,
pieces.
all that. Do they take that in consideration when they, in the, whatever their portion from the state is, the donation?
Unfortunately, we get a lot of mandates without a lot of funding attached to it. And so, often, and again, I am in agreement that I do think the secondary regulations are a good idea. I think it's going to help kids in the long run. Didn't come with any extra funding, right? So that burden is then shifted to the districts and to the towns to accommodate and to figure out how to pay for those requirements.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I mean, I hate to hear that, the teachers are losing their jobs and we're losing, population in the school, but it's kind of a reality of what's been happening. That's why the council's been trying to work on other things to try to get a more of a full-time residency here. So, but thanks for all your effort and hard work.
Thank you.
Councilor Lawler?
So again, thank you very much, and I am in total agreement with you. If we build it, they will come. We need to continue on to enhance our programming so that once the efforts of the majority of the council hopefully are going to trickle down to the community, hopefully we'll have some housing open up for young families and for people that want to move to Narragansett for a quality education. That said, I only have two questions for you. The first one is, what is currently the ratio, teacher-student ratio we have now?
It differs by grade level, so I can get that to you.
Okay, all right. The other question I have is with the state aid, we went down 2.82. How does that compare to other communities in the state?
It really varies. So they tweaked the formula a little bit this year to kind of give a little bit more funding to communities that needed a little more support. For us, it's also based on number of students. And so we were actually really fortunate. We try to squeeze every nickel that we can out of our state aid. So, I do want to kind of give a shout out to our special education director who did a lot of really hard work in getting extra aid from the state for our high cost special education students that need to go out of district. So, in comparison to other districts across the state, some lost hundreds of thousands of dollars We only lost 60. Some gained hundreds and thousands of dollars, kind of depending on the community that you're in. For us, we're really pleased that we took just a little bit of a hit. I mean, I'd rather have the 60,000 back. But some of that is due to us really paying close attention to the regulations and making sure that we get every form in and try to get every dollar that we can that's coming to Narragansett.
So it's comparable to South County, South Kingstown, we're about the same.
Yeah, we lost less,
Okay.
quite honestly.
All right, good for you guys. That's it.
Okay, I'll save my comments till the end. Any members of the public wishing to comment? Ma'am?
Good evening, Bretta Combs, 5 Crane Terrace. I just wanted to come up and thank Dr. Cummings and the finance team for putting together a wonderful budget. I did take time to look through it, did attend a few meetings, and I know what it takes to put this together. It's quite extensive. I did also just want to mention, I know, Steve, you'd mentioned, the drop in positions in the district, and certainly that's always concerning because people are losing their jobs. I did want to mention, though, hiring and retaining high-quality teachers is a very serious matter right now across the country. About 86% of public schools in the country are struggling to find and hire, retain high-quality teachers, and I do think that Dr. Cummings and his team have done an amazing job building a very strong leadership team and a very strong faculty and staff. I would be remiss to leave the mic and not put one plug in, just one. This has kind of been a little thing of mine for quite some time. I've actually talked with your high school principal about considering a CTE in marine biology. I do think that Narragansett would be a great district to consider in partnership with the University of Rhode Island. They do have one of the best marine biology programs in the country. My daughter actually went to that school, or was at that school, and is also a product of Narragansett school system. And I do think that that would be a nice draw for kids leaving high school, going off to college, and maybe considering that field. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to comment? Okay. All right, seeing none, so okay. So I just want to say how very proud I am of our exceptional school system. I also want to thank everyone for putting this budget together. Thank you, Dr. Cummings, for that presentation. Thank you to the Finance Director, Karen Hagan, members of the school committee, Tammy McNeese, Diane Nobles, Alex Menzies, Justin Skenyon, and Jennifer Armstrong. Also want to thank our finance director and our town manager for all the work that they kind of put into this. Again, as Councilor Lawler mentioned, we do want to see more families moving in this town. So we are working on policies so that, and I would love to see, again, more families come to this town. So hopefully we can make that a reality. And I also want to reiterate the point that Dr. Cummings made, because I do attend the League of Cities and Towns, and it's always brought up that, the appropriations for municipalities. And as he mentioned, Narragansett is one of the lowest at 44%. And when we compare that to 67% in South Kingstown, that's very notable. So I do want to bring that up again. And that's the percent total budget of municipal allocations to education. So that's really all I wanted to say. I wanted to say thank you. I am interested in the plant sale, so I'll have to get the data. And then 2%, that is below the rate of inflation, and it is very fiscally conscious and so thank you for that. I know a lot of thought and effort went into this, and I think it's a great budget proposal. So thank you. So at this point, I'll ask any other council members if they any other comments or any town manager, like Mr. Tierney, would you like to comment, or finance director?
Sure, I'll be brief. When I speak to other municipal colleagues in this role, I tell them how often I meet with Dr. Cummings, and I think some of them are a little surprised. We probably meet at least once a week, even if it's just a 5-minute conversation in the hallway about work. But it keeps me up to date, and I share with the council on occasion notable items that happen in the school department. We have a great working relationship with DPW and the facilities crew with the school department. When we have disasters or weather events, they work together very well, helping each other out. We have the 3 SROs in the schools, and we share the finances for some of those. I've also relied on the school department, reached out to Dr. Cummings for special events for students who are skilled with the music and singing, because I am not. So they do a great job, and they represent the community very well, and that represents the school department well. And I'd like to thank the school committee and Dr. Cummings and all the staff that make it so good. And thank you.
Okay. No, all set. Okay. Okay, so with no other comments, and thank you for members of the public for coming out and supporting this budget. So at this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 4-0.
We need to also close the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? We do.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Right. I forget to, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So
Thank
moved.
you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 4-0. Now, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely. I think UConn's playing. Let's adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion